All right, Shalom. I want to give all praise and honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Wahaba Kodash. I want to say double honor to the apostles and the elders at Great Millstone for teaching his word in truth and sincerity and for ruling well. And salutations to my fellow Akim across the four corners of the globe, preaching it in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Hey, this is the brother Gabar Howard from GMS Hawaii, coming to you with another live lesson. Today's live lesson is entitled Convict, Leasing, Slavery by Another Name. And, you know, what inspired this lesson, I had it like I was going to work on it. It was like something I've been like, researching for the last couple of days when I was watching the Apostles live show. Well, it was pre-recorded, but nonetheless, it's still a live show. There's street preaching, that last street preaching they just put up yesterday. And, Apostle Tahar had mentioned how, like, slavery was the word that he used was what was the word that he used? It was, what was the word that he used? It was, not horrendous, but something like that. I forget the name of the word that particular word that he used, but they looked it up, and I'm trying to remember the name of that word. I want to say horrendous, but it wasn't horrendous, but let me see. Bear with me, brothers. I just kind of, because I want to make a point, and I'm trying to look for this word, synonym. Yeah, so heinous. The word that he used was heinous, and when you look at that definition up, it says heinous is of a person wrongful act, especially a crime, utterly odious or wicked. And what Esau did to us in chattel slavery, after chattel slavery ended, was heinous, man. It was a heinous crime. It was a heinous act, man. And he created his prison system to basically mirror what chattel slavery was for the Israelites, man. So I have a couple of articles and some scriptures, and we'll just see where the Spirit take us at with this. But this is from the conversation.com, and this was posted in 2017, February 6, 2017. It says exploiting black labor after the abolition of slavery. Slavery was supposed to be ended after the Civil War in 1865, which really the president at that particular time, Abraham Lincoln, he didn't really want to free the slaves. It was just a tactic, a war tactic for the South. He didn't free the slaves outside of the rebel states, man. Outside the rebel states, and eventually when slavery was ended, and it was really ended by the super elite, they wanted to change it over from basically chattel slavery to wage slavery, because just like Apostle Tahar said, he mentioned in his in a lot the street preaching that basically wage slavery is like minimum wage. You can't really live off of that, man. So we went from working for pretty much free and having this devil, he was giving us shelter and what he called shelter and clothing, to now you got to go to work for these things, man. When slavery was over, it wasn't like it was things got better for our people. In fact, things got worse. All right. I'm just looking for I had something that just popped in my head. Trying to see if I have it up here. It's it's called the hazard circular. Circular. The hazard circular. All right. Right here. And I'll show you. This is what the Edomite said when slavery was about to end, when chattel slavery was about to end for the Israelites. So Lord willing, this pops up. Yeah. So right here it says slavery. This is the history of the hazard circular. It says slavery is likely to be abolished by the war power. And, the war power was America. America is that war power behind Esau. Esau uses America as his war power. just like London is its financial sector and the Vatican is its religious sector. Okay, and it says slavery is likely to be abolished by the war power and chattel slavery destroyed. This I and my European friends are in favor of, for slavery is but the owning of labor and carries with it the care of the laborer, while the European plan led on by England is capital control of labor, controlling wages. This can be done by controlling the money. And that's what happens. The super elite, through their proxies, their banking proxies, they created a financial system that basically puts you in a wage slavery, man. It says while the European plan led on by England is the capital control of labor by controlling wages, and that's what they have done. They control labor. Now, some people in this slavery, they do better. The these Edomites and these other nations. But when it comes to our people hasn't fared well or even better since slavery was so-called abolished. And I'll read the rest of what he said right here. It says, this can be done by controlling the money. The great debt that capitalists will see to it is made out of the war must be used as a measure to control the volume of money. To accomplish this, the bonds must be used as banking basis. We are now waiting to get the Secretary of the Treasury to make this recommendation to Congress. It will not do to allow the greenback. It is called to circulate as money any length of time, and that's what Abraham Lincoln was pushing. For we cannot control them, but we can control the bonds, and through them the bank issues. Because when they put us in slavery, that was somewhat cost consuming for them, to keep Jake in that chattel condition. So they changed it from being chattel slavery to what we now call wage slaves. But again, even with that being said, when slavery ended, you devils, you wanted to find more ways to exploit the children of Israel, man. All right, real quick, this is Ezekiel 35:5. It says, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword, in the time of their calamity, in the time of their iniquity had an end. Right. We spent 250 years in America in hardcore slavery, and then that's just in North America, and then you went from that to this convict leasing system to Jim Crow to so-called civil rights, but nothing got better for you. Nothing really got better for our people. Forced integration into this man's system, so they could have a bigger foothold on you. Because when we were segregated, you had pockets of Jakes that was doing well. You had cities, you had towns that was controlled by Israelites that we were doing well on our own, even though we started with barely nothing, and then forced integration happened. So we went from one captivity to the next captivity here. And again, this devil, he exploited our labor, man. This is so it says and this is all part of their perpetual hatred. Again, our slavery had an end. We should have went back home to our homeland and worshiped our power. We should have been allowed to do that, but we haven't. Here's another scripture real quick. This is Jeremiah 50 55. Let's see. Might be Jeremiah Slakia. Jeremiah 50 and 33. Jeremiah 50 and 33. It says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah, that's the northern kingdom, the so-called Latinos, Native Americans, Seminole Indians, and Judah, which would be the so-called Negro, West Indian, and Haitian, were oppressed together. Where were we oppressed together? Here in America. And all that took them captive held them fast. They refused to let them go. So this devil, he refused to let us go. And it's crazy because here it is. You scream about how, if you don't like it here, just go back to your country. Well, wait a minute. You grabbed us up hundreds of years ago from different places beyond Africa, So for you to say we're to go back to our country, what about you? Our people have suffered nothing but oppression here. All the 12 tribes. You got the Northern Kingdom coming up here from the South and Central America, catching hell here, man. You know, and they're doing the same thing they did to us. They're exploiting their labor through their penal system, through their immigration system. Okay, so it says exploiting black labor after the abolition of slavery. The U.S. criminal justice system is riven by racial disparity, right? Because this devil, when he gets Dr. Claude Anderson had called it. I think he said when a white man commits a crime, it's a civil situation. When a black man commits a crime, it's criminal. You know, white collar and blue collar. They call it white collar and blue collar crime. You commit a white collar crime, it's a civil situation. You commit a blue collar crime, it's a criminal offense. You got this Edomite that stole like $3.5 billion and he gets 40 months in prison. Jake steal a candy bar and go to jail for life. You see? So it says the Obama administration pursued a plan to reform it, and an entire news organization, the Marshall Project, was launched in late 2014 to cover it. Organizations like Black Lives Matter and the Sentencing Project are dedicated to unmaking a system that usually targets people of color. And when it says people of color, it's talking about the Israelites, Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. But how did we get this system in the first place? Our ongoing historical research project investigates the relationship between the press and convict labor. Investigates the relationship between the press and convict labor. While that story is still unfolding, we have learned what few Americans, especially white Americans, know: the dark history that produced our current criminal justice system. If anything is to change, if we are ever to end this racial nightmare, which this racial nightmare is going to end when Yahweh Shai comes, man, and achieve our country, which your country is not going to be achieved, as James Baldwin put it. We must confront this system and the blighted history that created, and that's why this devil, he wants to hide what happened to our people. This is Habakkuk 2:16. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Right, all the glory that America has is really a shameful glory. How they took this place over from the so-called native Indians, the Gadites, and the Iskarites, the so-called Mexicans. How they pushed them into reservations and pushed them out of the country, or try to decimate them by death, through disease, through warfare, and then to bring the so-called Negro over here from Europe and West Africa, and forced us to build this land, man. That's a shameful glory, man. That's a shameful glory, and that's why this devil tries to change the school books. He tries to change history. He wants to basically change history. You got this one nigga, so-called Dr. Ben Carson, which the apostles they mentioned this guy Sambo, Dr. Sambo. He said that Negroes came over here as immigrants, which we didn't. We didn't come over here like the Europeans did, the so-called Europeans, these Edomites from these other nations, man. All right, slacking. Slack. This is I spelled that wrong. Yeah, I'll play it right here. All right. This sellout, this Dr. Sambo right here. This devil, he on a behest of Trump. This is what this nigga said. This devil said. Now play it.
There were other immigrants who came here in the bottom of slave ships, worked even longer, even harder for less.
Yeah, he said there were other immigrants that came over here on the bottom of slave ships that worked even longer, even harder for less. What less is nothing. because that's what we worked for. Nothing. Okay, we work so-called hard and less and even longer for nothing, not less. But this is the devil trying to change up history, man, and using his so-called politicians to do so. Like this dude said, no, Ben Carson, slaves weren't immigrants. We weren't immigrants, man.
That's what America is about. A land of dreams and opportunity. There were other immigrants who came here in the bottom of slave ships, worked even longer, even harder for less.
Yeah, you see, because you get some of our people that sell out to this man, and they bow down to this devil, forgetting the exploitation of our people. And again, this is that shameful spewing that's put on this devil. Again, thou art filled with shameful glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered, meaning all their sins, all their evil is coming out, man. It's being shown. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee. So you devils, you're going to face this same judgment and much more, because you're going to get double what we had. And shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. And when you look up that for spewing, that word for spewing, it talks about disgrace. All right. So it says shameful spewing. When you look up that word there in the Hebrew, the word there is kwaya kwa la, wan, and it says disgrace, shame. And America's history is disgraceful, and we're reading about it. We're reading about how you created a so-called judicial system, a justice system that benefited you and that disadvantaged us, man. That hatred was so raw that you created a system that's still happening today, because you got Jakes locked up in these prison houses that are working for Fortune 500 companies right now. They're telemarketers. They're building furniture. They even work for the state building license plates, man. And other raw materials, man. So it says during where I was at in this. It says right here during the Reconstruction, which Dr. Claude Anderson was talking about that. He said it lasted from I think about 18 what was it, like 1865 to 1875, which was a 10-year period. During Reconstruction, the 12 years following the end of the Civil War and the abolition of slavery, former slaves made meaningful political and social and economic gains. Black men voted and even held public office across the South. Biracial experiments in government flowered. Black literacy surged, surpassing those of whites in some cities. Black schools, churches, and social institutions thrived. Okay. As a prominent historian, Eric Foner writes in his masterwork on Reconstruction, Black participation in Southern public life after 1867 was the most radical development of the Reconstruction years, a massive experiment in interracial democracy without precedent in the history of this or any other country that abolished slavery in the 19th century. Right. And these devils, they didn't want you Jakes to rule next to them. They didn't want us to surpass them. They wanted us in that slave state. And they created this slavery by another name, called it the convict leasing system, man. They would rather have us here than have us in suits next to them or voting and whatnot. Which voting, we shouldn't be voting anyway, because none of these people are our people, man. And he had mentioned this list right here. He said the first 75 justices, the U.S. justices, all of them own slaves, man. From this guy, from John Jay, all the way down to this guy right here, Benjamin Cardozo, man. All of these dudes own slaves, man. In some way or capacity. you know. And then on top of that, none of these devils had our best interests at hand, man. You know, I think they said like when they got a nigga and a so-called black person and on the Supreme Court was in 1908. I'm sorry, not 1908. Was 1967. All right, and that was with Thurgood Marshall, man. So of the it took they had 90 up to 95 of these were Edomites, and then you had that one Jake, and then you had a whole bunch of more Edomites, and then in 1991, uh, they picked another black dude to take Thurgood Marshall's place, which was Clarence Thomas, man. You know, and then the rest of them just been Edomites, man, except for that uh, Sonia Sotomayor, man. You know, all right. So you have this whole system was created to keep us enslaved, to keep us destroyed, man. You know. So let's keep on reading. It says but this moment was short-lived. As W.E.B. Du Bois wrote, the slave went free, stood a brief moment in the sun, then moved back again towards slavery. Why? Because this is not our rest, man. You know, the Lord didn't send us down here to be you know, content with this place, man. You know, a lot of our people, they want to make it here, they want to thrive here, but this is not our rest, this is not our home. This is Salakia, Micah 2 and 10. Micah 2 and 10. Micah 2 and 10. Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest. Because it is polluted, it shall destroy you, even with a sword destruction. And that's what this place has done to 2/3 of our people. It says history is made by human actors and the choices they make. According to Douglas Blackman, author of Slavery by Another Name, the choices made by the Southern white supremacists after abolition and the rest of the country's accommodation explains more about the current state of American life, black and white, than the antebellum slavery that preceded it. Designed to reverse black advances, redemption, right? Because the scripture says that no man was going to redeem us, man. No man was going to redeem us, and that's what that would have been. You know, Jake would have got that 40 acres and a mule. Or Jake would have got, which that still ain't real redemption because the scriptures say that real reparation is for us to have these nations in slavery, man. You know, it says designed to reverse black advances, redemption was an organized effort by whites, uh, by white merchants, planners, businessmen, and politicians that followed Reconstruction. Redeemers employed vicious racial violence and state legislation as tools to prevent black citizenship and equality promised under the 14th and the 15th Amendment. And Claude Anderson said that there's two constitutions. He says there's the one that was written during 1778 or whatever, 79, and then you have the one that was rewritten to add the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which it didn't really abolish slavery. It said it abolished slavery except for in cases of you commit a crime. And you see Jake right here. Who was in these prisons, back then? It was Israelites, man. Little boys. Let me see if I can. Yeah, these are children in prisons, man. Children locked up in prisons, basically put back into slavery, man. This is them forward in our affliction. Real quick, this is Isaiah. This is Isaiah 42 and 22. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in the holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none say restore. And this is an example of that. Those prison houses and those holes can also be these different churches and these ideologies that Jake are into, but even more so, these prisons as well. These prisons as well. Nobody was coming to their aid. These are children. And they had them locked up with grown men. They were working long hours, just like they did when they were in chattel slavery. working these long hours, working these long hours. It says juvenile convicts at work in the field in 1903. All right. And this is what they did. Now they got something called the chain gang. All right. I had another scripture too. Salakia. This is Isaiah. Salakia. Yep. This is Zechariah, Salakia, Zechariah 1:15. I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease, for I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. And that's what this convict leasing system was all about. It was about forwarding our affliction. They didn't want to let up. Remember, it was hundreds of years. They were making free they had free labor, and they were making over thousands of percent on their investments, man. And they didn't want that to end. And so they created this prison system, this whole convict leasing system that would lease our people out to different companies, man. Companies that still exist to this day. It says nearly every southern state had a barred, I'm sorry, in the 1900s, nearly every southern state had barred black citizens, not only from voting, but also from serving in public office, on juries, and in administration of the justice system. The South's new racial caste system was not merely political and social, it was thoroughly economic. Slavery had, and that's why, you got Jake's talking about, even Claude Anderson talking about how economics is going to free us from these bonds of this slavery that we're in, but it's not. You're not going to get enough money. One, your communities are not going to get along. Why? Because of the curses. The eye of thy brother shall be evil towards thy brother. The delicate. Matter of fact, I'm up here freestyling. Let me just get it. This is Deuteronomy 28 and 50. Let's go to 54 and 54. Right. It says, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother. So, according to Claude Anderson, you gotta build a 5-story building. In this 5-story building, you got the bottom portion, which is the foundation, is the community getting along and everybody seeing eye to eye and in the interest of the community. Well, that's not going to happen because 2/3 which the curses affect us all, but more so the 2/3, man. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. And that's why you got a lot of single parent homes in the ghetto, in the hood, the hoods, because they're not, like you said, there's not neighborhoods no more. Nobody's each other's neighbor. And they did that not through just the fact that Jake was willing to leave, but also through social programs like welfare, like these SSI, all these different programs that basically said the man had to leave, and Esau became the father. Then he said on the next floor, you got the first floor, whatever, you got your businesses, and they got money, and then you got politicians on the second floor, and on the third floor, you buy the politicians. You use the money that you have to buy the politicians, so they're in your pocket. And then the fourth and the fifth floor is education, something like that. That's the reason why, because they made sure that this system didn't benefit us. And here it is, you got Jake's crying to crawl back on the plantation to be accepted by this man, and he won't do it. This is hundreds of years of undoing that you would try to do in what, 1 year, 4 years, 10 years. That's not going to happen, man. That's going to happen in one day when Howard Shai come here, because that's divine intervention, you know. But as far as our people with their own might, there's no might in our hand. So anyway, let's keep on reading. It said the South's new racial caste system was not merely political and social, it was thoroughly economic. Slavery had made the South agriculture-based economy the most powerful force in the global cotton market, but the Civil War devastated this economy. How to build a new one? Ironically, white leaders found a solution in the 13th Amendment, which ended slavery in the United States in 1865 by exploiting the provision allowing slavery and involuntary servitude to continue as punishment for crime. They took advantage of the penal system predating the Civil War and used even during Reconstruction. Right. So they start throwing Jake, Marshall, and Jake into these different prisons, man. And you still have it today. Now you got Jake just openly committing crime, and then when they do commit crime, they're getting charged double what an Edomite would get charged. Or you got a lot of Jakes being put in prison falsely under false pretense, man, serving 20 and 30 years. What you think they were doing in the penal system? Just sitting there? No, they had to find a job. And then they get paid pennies on a dollar, if that. Because remember, they got to pay restitution to their victims and to the state. So really, they're not making no money. They're just there. You do 20 years and they give you a check for $100. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. It says it says a new form of control. With the help of profiteering industrialists, they found yet a new way to build wealth on the bond labor of Black Americans. Going back to what? Deuteronomy 28 and 68, man. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen, slave men, and bond women, slave women. And no man shall buy you, meaning no man shall redeem you. This didn't happen to the so-called Jew. This is not happening to any other nation, but it's happening to ours, man. You see? The tribes, all the tribes, man. But we're just talking about the tribe of Judah right now. But it says, let me read that again. A wealth on a bound labor of Black Americans, the convict lease system. Here's how it worked. Black men and sometimes women and children were arrested and convicted for crimes enumerated in the Black codes. You know, and let's look at what the Black codes were. Let's search that. Black codes. Black codes were restrictive laws designed to limit the freedom of African Americans, which was Israelites, because we ain't African, neither are we Americans, and ensure their availability as a cheap labor force after slavery was abolished during the Civil War. Okay? Black codes. This is off of Wikipedia. You know, and like this is like a lot of sons of Jacob still in jail, still this day, falsely accused, right? And that's happening. You know, this is not something a lot of Jakes want to walk down memory lane and learn about, but it's something you should, because it fit the scriptures, man. You know, Black codes. I'm just looking to see some. Let me see. Slavery was a bad thing, and slavery was a bad thing, and freedom of the kin we got with nothing to live on was bad. Two snakes full of poison, one lying with his head pointing north, and the other with his head pointing south. Their names was slavery and freedom. The snake called slavery lay wide, his head pointed south, and the snake called freedom lay wide, his head pointed north, because a lot of Jakes thought freedom was north. Both bit a nigga, and they was both bad, right? Because escaping to the north, it was no freedom for you there either. You was catching hell up there too. You see? It says, among which were 7 major slave codes, with some containing more than 50 provisions. Black codes in the antebellum South contained more regulations of free blacks than of slaves. Chattel slaves basically lived under a complete control of their owners. Free blacks presented a challenge to the boundaries of white dominated society. Black codes in antebellum South strongly regulated the activities and behavior of blacks. North Carolina restricted slaves from leaving their plantations if one tried to court date a woman on another property. He risked severe punishment at the hands of his paddy rollers, or needed a pass in order to pursue this relationship. In many southern states, particularly in Nat Turner's insurrection of 1831, free blacks were prohibited from the basic constitutional rights of citizens, showing that we're not citizens, to assemble in groups. And that's still a problem now. And bear arms. That's still a major issue now. Learn to read and write, exercise free speech, or testify against white people in court. After 1810, states made manumissions, which is a affranchisement in the act of an owner freeing his or her slaves. It says of slaves more difficult to obtain, so you couldn't get your freedom. And some states requiring an act of legislator for each case sharply reduced the incidence of planters freeing slaves. You know. So reading on, it says here's how it worked. Black men and sometimes black women and children were arrested and convicted for crimes enumerated in the black codes. State laws criminalized petty offenses and aimed at keeping freed people tied to their former owners, plantations, and farms. The most sinister crime was vagrancy, the crime of being unemployed, which brought a large fine that few blacks could afford to pay. So here it is. They let you so-called free with quotes, with air quotes, and then if you got found to be unemployed, man, they throw you in prison, man. You know, because you ain't had no job. And that's why you see a lot of Jakes, man, they be breaking their necks to get a fucking job, which we understand you got to survive, you know, but Jake think that having a job is something you're supposed to have. We're Israelites, man. We're not supposed to work, man. In the kingdom of heaven, we're not going to be fucking working at all. We're going to have people working for us. Okay? We're going to have servants. We're going to have handmaids, slaves working for us, man. You know, a lot of Jakes, they feel like, man, you know, I just got to do something with my hands. I don't want to sit around and do nothing. We're not going to be sitting around doing nothing. But if that's something you choose to do in the kingdom of heaven, guess what? You can do that. You know? And the work that your slaves and servants do is going to be in your name. So it's going to be like, hey, you did that. You know, our people can't see themselves without jobs. A lot of times you say that because of this, man. A lot of our people were scared to go to prison because they didn't have a job. So they go what? Back on a plantation and work for nothing, man. Then you have sharecropping, which is another lesson for another time. You see, black convicts were leased. It says black convicts were leased to private companies, typically industries profiteering from the region's untapped natural resource. You see, as many as 200,000, it says black Americans were, which we're not black or Americans, 200,000 Israelites were forced into back-breaking labor in coal mines, turpentine factories, and lumber camps. And in these jobs now, they pay all kinds of Edomites, all kinds of money. Let me see the average salary of a lumberjack. And you can bet ain't no Israelites getting that paper, man. So the average salary for a lumberjack is between 34,000 to 48,000 per year. They call it loggers now. $9 to $25 an hour as a median. You see? But guess what? We was getting nothing. You know, we weren't getting shit, man. You know, turpentine mines, turpentine factories, and lumber camps. They lived in squalid conditions, chained, starved, beaten, flogged, and sexually violated. So we were getting raped, man. Jake was getting raped. You know, they were molesting the children, raping the women. We were being beaten. We were being starved. And they died by the thousands from injury, disease, and torture. So this man, he didn't show us no mercy, man. I think I had that scripture. I might have read it earlier, but I'll read it again. This is James chapter 2. James chapter 2, verse 13. For he shall have judgment without mercy that have showed no mercy. And mercy rejoiceth against judgment. So you see what Jake had to go through, man. And it's just one article. There's just one article. I'm sure other articles that I have get a little deeper into it. But you see what our people have to go through, man. You know, it's a beautiful thing why Yahweh Shem Shah is going to give us rest from all our afflictions that from all our burdens, man. From the hard bondage and we was made to serve, man. Because no other nation went through this. No other nation had to suffer something like this, man. You see? All because this devil wanted to maintain his profit margins, maintains so-called supremacy over our people, man. And why would you have to do something like this? Because he knows that we're better than him. We're stronger than him. These Edomites, when they go into hardcore, let me get a scripture real quick. Revelation 2 and 9, man. I mean, Revelation 13 and 9. Revelation 13 and 9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints, man. So you put somebody in a captivity, you got to go into captivity. You nations, starting off with you Edomites, you put us in a captivity, you're going into captivity. You killed us with the sword, you're going to be killed with the sword. You know? And it's only right. Because, come on, man. What the fuck, bro? You see? Disease and torture. It says they died by the thousands from injury, disease, and torture, man. You know? And I think they got a picture of a Jake. All right. Let me see. You know, no Chinese, no Arabs, no East Indians. They didn't go through this shit. This pictures of Jake's and Convict Leasing. One dies, get another, man. That was their sentiment, man. Convict Leasing the American South. One dies, get another. You see? Yeah, this is the picture that I was thinking about. Right here. He's being punished. This is a child being punished for something. He's shackled and tied to a pole, man. In the most uncomfortable position, man. And could do nothing about it, man. You see? But nobody feel bad about that. And then you look at Jake's condition now and you say, oh, Jake this. Yeah, Jake is wicked, man, but goddamn, bro. Look what our people had to suffer and look where they at. You know? And that's why we need Yahweh Shai, man. I find myself saying that all the time, man, these days, man. Sometimes more than not, man. Because we need Yahweh Shai, man, in every way. It says, for both the state and private corporations, the opportunities for profit were enormous. For the state, Convict Leasing generated revenue and provided a powerful tool to subjugate African Americans and intimidate them into behaving in accordance with the new social order. It also greatly reduced state expenses in housing and caring for convicts. For the corporations, Convict Lease provided droves of cheap, disposable laborers who could be worked to the extreme of human cruelty, man. And that's what they thought of you. That's what they thought. That's no mercy, man. That's how these corporations, Hanes, you name it, all these clothing companies, man. All these clothing companies, all these industrial companies, they got rich off the backs of our people, man. So slavery didn't end 400 years ago. Slavery didn't end in 1865. Slavery continued all the way until now. You see? And it wasn't just like the brother said. He said Jake's went through more trials. The brother Hebrew Israelite Salakia. I gotta wait for it to come up on this one. But the brother Hebrew Judah, Jake went through more atrocities than any other race on the planet Earth, and that's right. That's 100% right, man. That's in the scriptures, man. Daniel 9:12, man. Daniel 9:12, and he hath confirmed his word which he spake against us and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil. For under the whole heaven have not been done as have been done upon Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is a people before it's a place, man. Jerusalem is a people before it's a place. All right. You know, you got Jake, but then this devil wants you to go fight a fucking war for him. This devil wants you to be happy and content. And then they had that this coon nigga, this Dr. Sambo Carson, talk about we was immigrants, man. We weren't no motherfucking immigrants, man. We're prisoners of war. Every day that an Israelite walks on this American soil, it shows that we're nothing more than prisoners of war in this place, man. You see? So reading on, it says every southern state leased convicts, and at least 9/10 of all leased convicts were black. And in reports of the period, the terms convict and Negroes are used interchangeably, and even to this very day, man. That's why when you think of a convict, what pops up in your mind? Is it a white guy pop up in your mind? I'm gonna keep that there. Let's type convict. Convict. The images of a convict. Oh, they got this. But normally it's Jakes. It's Jakes that pop up as the convict, man. Which really the real convict is you Edomites, man. You devils, man. You know? You see? Let's keep on reading. It says, we're interchangeably. Of those black Americans caught in the convict leave system, a few were men like Henry Nesbitt, who murdered 9 other black men in Georgia. So, like I said, you had wickedness of our people. Not everybody was innocent, but hey, you had wickedness. But the vast majority were like Green Cottenham, the central figure of the figure in Blackman's book, who was snatched into the system after being charged with vagrancy. Because not every criminal or so-called criminal in the justice system is innocent. You got wickedness, but then you got a lot of Jakes that are innocent, man. And again, no other nation had to endure this kind of shit, man. Let's keep on reading. It says, it meant, I'm sorry, was Cottenham who was snatched into the system after being charged with vagrancy. A principal difference between the antebellum slavery and convict leasing was that in the latter, the laborers were only the temporary property of their masters. On one hand, this meant that after their fines had been paid off, they would potentially be let free. On the other, it meant that companies leasing convicts often absolved themselves of concerns about workers' longevity. Such convicts were viewed as disposable and frequently worked beyond human endurance. And that's why this is going to happen to you Edomites when we get you. Revelation 20, Revelation 18. Revelation 18. Revelation 18. They said they worked Jake beyond human endurance, man. And you best believe you Edomites, man, you're going to be worked beyond human endurance, man. And hey, your life ain't going to matter in the kingdom of heaven, man. You know? None of you heathen nations, man, but especially you Edomites, man. This is Revelation 18:4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, the Most High have remembered her iniquities. So Yahweh Bashim Shai has remembered the iniquities of Edom, man. You know, that whore that sits on many waters, the queen, the Slakia, the great whore, which is America, but it's helmed and led by you Edomites, man. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. And the cup which she had filled to her, when she had filled to her double. How much has she glorified herself and lived deliciously? So much torment and sorrow give her. For she hath said in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death, mourning, and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord, strong is the Lord power who judgeth her, man. You see? And that's talking about Babylon and Great. That's talking about America, man. This is Lamentations 4:21. Lamentations 4:21. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom. That's how we know we're talking about Esau, Edom, and that we know that the Babylon the Great is led and by Esau, Edom. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwelleth in the land of Uz. The cup also shall pass through unto thee. Which cup is that? This cup. This cup. All that slavery, all that destruction being worked beyond human endurance, that's coming to you. And you Esau, you double, you Edomites, you know that, and this is what you're scared of. But hey, so what? The punishment of Salakia, the cup also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken and shalt make thyself naked. The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. So our punishment is over after this, man. He will no more carry thee away into captivity. We're never going to go into captivity again after this, man. After Yahweh Shai comes back, man. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins, man. You know, and your sins are being discovered. We're bringing it out. We're bringing some of it out in your convict leasing system. All right? It says the living conditions of leased convicts are documented in dozens of detailed firsthand reports. And, you know, because, you know, a lot of the atrocities that have been done to our people, especially particularly Judah, they're well documented. You got documented cases and issues of the Northern Kingdom too, but what happened to Judah here in America is well documented, man. You know, it's well documented. It's in documents. You know, it says the living conditions of leased convicts are documented in dozens of detailed firsthand reports spanning decades and covering many states. In 1883, Blackman writes, Alabama prison inspector Reginald Dawson described leased convicts in one mine being held on trivial charges as desperate, miserable conditions, poorly fed, clothed, and unnecessarily chained and shackled. He described the appalling number of deaths and the appalling numbers of maimed and disabled men held by various forced labor entrepreneurs spanning the entire state, man. You see? You see? Jake had to suffer through this, man. You see? So it didn't stop with slavery. So-called slavery did not stop in 1865, man. We were emancipated. We were shifted from private sector to the federal and state sectors, man. Dawson reports had no perceptible impact on Alabama's convict leasing system. The exploitation of black convict labor by the penal system and industrialists was central to the Southern politics and economics of the era. It was carefully crafted answer to black progress during a Reconstruction. So that showed you that they didn't want you to have no progress. So all you Jakes talking about, we need to do something to get progress, you're not going to get it. This is Deuteronomy 28 and Salakia. Yep, 28 and 33. Deuteronomy 28 and 33. The fruit of the land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always, man. So that's a curse that was levied on us, man, for our iniquities, man. That these nations will eat up our labor, man, especially the nation that eat them. You see, it says The exploitation of black convict labor by the penal system and industrialists, and living conditions are no better in a lot of these major prisons that you see here in America either, man. They're always complaining about conditions in those prison houses, man. The exploitation of black convict labor by the penal system and industrialists was central to the Southern politics and economics of the era. It was carefully crafted answer to black progress during Reconstruction. Highly visible and widely known, the system benefited the national economy too. The federal government passed up one opportunity after another to intervene. So they'll show you that this devil, he didn't give a fuck, man. Convict lease ended at a different time, at different times across the earlier 20th century, only to be replaced in many states by another racialized and brutal method of convict labor, the chain gang. You see? Convict labor, debt peonage, lynching, and the white supremacist ideology of Jim Crow that supported them all produced a bleak social landscape across the South for Americans. And that's why a lot of Jake migrated from the South up to the North and to the West. They were trying to escape, you know, but them, as they went, Edomites went too. And they kept it going. They kept it going in California. When Ronald Reagan was the governor of California, he didn't give a damn about you Jakes. Mike Pence, when he was the governor of Indiana, he didn't give a damn about you Jakes, man. You see? And the federal government don't care about you now. You know? This is Ezekiel 35. Oh, I read it already. This is Luke 16:21. And desiring to be fed, matter of fact, because this is good parable, because you Edomites are going to go through this. This is Luke 16:19. There was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. And with that rich man is you Edomites. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus. The Lazarus is the Israelites, which was laid at his gate full of sores and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores, which is those dogs of those other nations, man. You know, we were already beaten, downtrodden, destroyed, and here come Moab, Ammon, Ishmael, Elam, you know, licking our wounds, man, making it worse. And it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And in hell he lifted up his eyes, being in torments, and seeth Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. Right, because when these devils when they get into slavery, that hell is the grave, is a condition. It's not a place where you burn. And so this devil, he died, and in hell, when he died, I mean, his kingdom was destroyed. In hell, he went into hardcore slavery. He looked and saw Abraham. He saw Lazarus, the Israelites, in his bosom, and he cried and said, "Father Abraham," because it's not Esau, Edom, Abraham's grandson. He is. He says, and he cried and said, "Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame," which is going to be that hardcore slavery. And you Edomites, you're going to go through it for 1,000 years, man. 1,000 hard, long years, man. Okay? And it says, and beside all this between us, but Abraham said, "Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime received thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things," right? But now he is comforted and thou art tormented, right? Because in his life, you Edomites, you receive good things. You receive prestige, you receive power, you receive influence, you received glory, all the good things. You got the best of the land. But now we're gonna but now in the kingdom of heaven, we're gonna be comforted and you're gonna be tormented, man. All right. Okay, it says, and besides this, all this between us and you there is a great gulf fixed, so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot, neither can they pass to us. They would come from thence. Then he said, I pray thee, therefore, Father, that thou wouldest send him to my father's house. For I have 5 brethren, that he may testify unto them, lest they also come into this place of torment. So basically, he's trying to warn his people, hey, to do the right thing, or you're going to be in this torment. But Abraham said unto them, they have Moses and the prophets. Let them hear then. Let them hear them, which is this book, this word, this truth. The word that we're giving them, we're the prophets. We're coming in Moses' stead. And he said, nay, Father Abraham, but if one went into them from the dead, they will repent. And he said unto him, if they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one arose from the dead, man. You see? That's right. Fitzgerald, World War III is going to happen. Zechariah 1:15, I read this earlier. I am sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease, for I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. You know, Obadiah 1:10, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. So you Edomites, you're going to be cut off forever, man. Shame is going to cover you, you know, for all of this shit that you did to our people, man. You know, and I got a lot of other, you know, articles on Convict Leasing, but pretty much, you know, it says it all. It says between 1875 and 1928, the state and the counties of Alabama profited from a form of prison labor known as the convict leasing system. Under the system, companies and individuals paid fees to state and county governments in exchange for the labor of prisoners on farms, lumber yards, and coal mines, man. And I was trying to look at companies. Let me see if I can find something. Companies that made profits off leasing. I was looking for companies that made profit off of convict leasing, but they didn't really give too much. But these companies are still here today. These companies are still in power today, you know. So yeah, brothers, I wanted to bring that out, and I hope brothers were edified. You know, I could go on some more, but I think I hit the nail on this one. You know, yeah, convict leasing was terrible, brothers. You know, and you Edomites, you're gonna pay for this. You're gonna pay for what you did to us, man. You know, the Most High didn't forget. You might have forgotten, but Yahweh Shem Shai has not forgotten. So it was with that, giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Shem Shai, double honor to the apostles and the elders at Great Millstone, for teachers' word and truth with sincerity, and for doing well. And citation to my fellow Akim. Keep pushing, keep striving. We're almost out of here. Shalom.